This is the train that we were on from the airport to the train station, which is here. They had some really, really cool filigree architecture. Never seen a train station that had that much attention to detail. This is why London is funny. I just love that. This is the train from London to Wales, and there were just a few interesting shots that I could get. Here we are landing in Abergavenny. This is the town hall. It's a really old building, which is why it has these really ornate windows. This is the place where we were to rent the boats, and that's the boat that we were on. It's our boat, has our stuff in it. They had a peacock at the boat place for some reason. Some really cool mountains in Wales, and here is a close-up shot of the town hall in Abergavenny. This is the interior of the boat. As you can see, it is absolutely tiny. There's no two ways about it. It's tiny. And everything had to be self-contained. So every morning we had to stop and get water, fill up the ballast, and my artist tools, sketchbook, watercolors, yeah. So here we go, we're off. We are traveling down a canal. The boat travels very, very slowly. Some cool willow trees. I think our top allowable speed was 2 miles per hour. I love this bench. That bench is awesome. It's on the side of a public canal, but no one can sit on it. Anyway, the boat moves at 2 miles an hour. It can do faster. The motor is actually capable of much more power than that. But if you do that, you create a wake, which is where there are breaking waves along the shoreline, and that erodes the shoreline, obviously, and you're not allowed to do it. It's because it's obviously very bad for the shore and the environment and all that. So here we are coming up to a bridge. The bridges are kind of funny shaped on the underside. You can see it's not symmetrical. That's because along the right-hand side, you used to have a horse pulling barges. They didn't used to have motors. That's what these canals were made for, was to transport a lot of stuff. Jelly babies. That's a jelly baby for Hannah and Brooke. And anyone else who ever watched an old Tom Baker Doctor Who episode. But anyway, you used to have these horses pulling boats, just like this. This is 10 times speed. Look how slow it is to get up to the stupid bridge at 10 times speed. These are some old kilns. Alright, they used to be kilns. You will be seeing a lot of pictures of ducks. There were just lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of ducks. So get used to ducks. Since it was so slow, we didn't have a lot to do other than to go into town like this. So we used up 2 or 3 boxes of crackers just feeding ducks. Because, why not? Ducks. And we're not quite back yet. Sorry. I believe this is still in town. Some really nice willow trees. These are the locks we had to go through. This is just an initial shot of them. There's more later from when we go back the second time. The first time through, there were 5 locks, and we did them once. The second time through, I did 13 locks, because there were people in front of us, and people behind us, and people coming the opposite way, and I was running around between the locks helping everyone to make it go faster, because obviously we needed to get back to the boat rental place at a certain time, because they need to, straighten out the boat and top it up with more petrol and do stuff. So this is what we did for most of the day. That's what I did for most of the day, just sat there, drew things. Also, I ran backwards through the boat several times because it was moving so slowly. if you walked sort of quickly backwards through the boat, you could actually stay in the same place, have a Red Queen effect, which was awesome. Feeding the ducks. On this trip, I learned that duck babies are really damn cute. I'm really cute. I don't know what it is, but they look fluffy. You just want to pet them. You can't pet them obviously because they have oil in their feathers to make them waterproof, and also it just messes up the feathers anyway if you pet them the wrong way. But they're fluffy, and I wish I could have pet them and like picked them up. They're hand-sized, right? Like you can hold one in your hand and it would fill your hand properly. I've spent a long time talking about ducks, and a bunch of stuff has happened. There were some bridges and that's a house, and these are some cows. There's a lot of livestock actually along the side of the canal. Pretty much everyone in Wales is apparently a farmer, or at least in this part of Wales. Cows, 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 cows. Here we go. Here's the lock. So this is thinner than the canal by a lot. You only have a foot of clearance either side. And you have to winch up these paddles to fill the lock. And then you have to unwinch them and lower it and stuff. And it's ruins. There's a ruin. I like ruins. Some cool walls alongside. Basically, on the canal boat, it was moving slowly enough that I could just take pictures of whatever I wanted. So I took pictures of fluffy sheep, which are also really cute. Pictures of kilns, and this must have been an old railway crossing. There were several of those along the canal, and they're not bridges. They're not low enough to be bridges, and they don't narrow. And they often had weird, almost rail-looking cars. There were a lot of those purple flowers everywhere in England, and Wales and Scotland. Mostly Wales, though. They're foxglove, also known as deadly nightshade, and it's always used in Miss Marple. In Miss Marple, if there's a poisoning death, it is either foxglove or cyanide. This is a drawbridge we had to go through. That was the electronic one. All of the manual ones were thankfully lifted, and this is Ashford Tunnel. This is a 15-minute tunnel. Just listen. Listen to the sound of the tunnel going brrrr. That's actually our engine. 15 minutes of this. And here we are, we're out of the tunnel. We're on our way back again, so you should be seeing some familiar scenery. This was actually as we were walking into a town, Talybont-on-Usk, I believe is how it's pronounced, but it's Welsh, so no one knows how it's pronounced other than the Welsh. But I believe it is Talybont-on-Usk. The Usk is a river. It's spelled U-S-K. I was told it was pronounced Usk, but I'm not sure if I believe that. This is me on top of the boat, because I can. Had to wait until we stopped moving. It was actually kind of cold in Wales. Not nearly as cold as it was in Scotland, but it was noticeably chilly. It was often a bite. See what I mean about Welsh? Fowie dog? That's not even... W is a value, and it usually makes a U sound. Like... Gladwyr Cymru is Welsh water, but it's probably something more like Gladwyr Cymru or something. I don't know. I like to make fun of the Welsh for having an impossible to pronounce language which uses the Latin alphabet in ways that the Latin alphabet should not be used. This was the Broken Bridge, easiest bridge we ever went under. More duck babies. Duck babies are cute. Look at that. This was a sort of long bridge, and it was really hard to hear what people were saying on the back of the boat if you were standing on the front of the boat, and vice versa. But underneath bridges and in the tunnel and underneath that, especially that long bridge, there's perfect acoustics. Or not perfect, but really echoey ones, so you can talk at the back of the boat and you'll hear it at the front. And that wraps up Wales. So this is the church down the street from where we stayed in Oxford, and these are all just photos from the first day when we were going around. We just wandered and took some pictures of the absolutely stunning architecture in Oxford. It's unlike anything else I have ever seen. There is this same yellow brick everywhere across all of Oxford. This is inside of a museum that we went to, and the samurai was kind of cool. He's got all this ornate stuff, but nothing really compared to especially this statue. This just blew me away. That is all stone. We got up close, and there were all these ornate roses and buttons and just perfectly carved people, but out of stone. And it was just absolutely breathtaking, the work that went into this. This is a pleasant surprise that greeted us. The first weekend we were there was Alice Day, and so Alice in Wonderland. It was one of the anniversaries of the writing of Alice in Wonderland. So there was a mad tea party on top of a hill, and the storytelling machine, which there are a bunch of pictures of because it's really, really cool. From what I can tell, it's a converted organ, along with a bunch of just slinkies and ladders and other found parts. And the premise of it is you put a child in and put a colander here on their head, and it uses their imagination to write a story. And if you look at the dials, which are coming up in a second, you can pull out dials for the past and the future and memory and dream, and look at all this stuff. I believe that is an old organ face that has had new button stickers put on. This was the well. It was kind of interesting, I guess. On top of the mound, there's a little hole that goes down into the well. It was really hot out that day, so it was kind of nice underground. This is another part of Alice Day. The Bodleian Library. Is it Bodleian or Bodleian? I don't know. They had all of their printing presses out, and there was a guy who would print something for you. But these are all old hand presses from back when you had to press a wood block onto a page. It comes out really nicely, but man, that's a lot of work. Apparently, gyre is a real word. And this is now outside the Bodleian and going towards it. These are just sort of the architecture around that area. The Bodleian is sort of in the middle of everything. It's central to a bunch of different universities. I took a bunch of pictures of that particular bridge because it's on a show, Inspector Morse, that takes place in Oxford, and they always show it. This is the Radcliffe camera, which is also always on Morse. There's just a lot of spires. Everything is very cohesive. It feels like stepping into the past. This is a really zoomed in, shaky picture of the Bodleian. This is the inner courtyard. I wasn't, unfortunately, able to take pictures inside the exhibit that we went to, which was an exhibit on magical books. Tolkien stuff, and they had a copy of Shakespeare's First Folio. Actually, I say copy. I think it was one of the ones that Shakespeare handwrote himself, and it was open to the first page of that Scottish play, which I will refer to as that because if I don't, my thespian friends will kill me. This is just the best street in the world. I want to live on Logic Lane. I want to. I can't because obviously I haven't even finished college yet, but of all the places in the world to live, this one would be pretty cool. Now, as you get farther away from the sort of central areas, the buildings do get a little bit more modern. This is inside one of the colleges, and I don't remember which college it was, but this is the inside of the church at the college, and everyone hates the outside, and you'll see why in a little while. But the inside is stunning. See, this is why they hate it, because it has these funny stripes on it. It got torn down or broken or something, and they rebuilt it like that, and then everyone hated it. And they've actually tried to tear it down several times, but the college is just says, it's a lot of work. We'll just leave it. Give it a chance. Be kind of ashamed to tear it down. It's really pretty inside. Now, not all of these are my photos. There's me and my dad inside the library. There's the cathedral again. It's not all exactly in sequential order. I'm pulling from 3 cameras here. So, we were all taking pictures around the same time. Lots of pictures of this bridge. It's a really cool bridge. It goes between the 2 buildings, and we have another one of it coming up now. I don't know what it is, but it's actually really cool, the bridge. They were doing some construction on the Radcliffe camera, unfortunately, so there's these weird green things. But I guess it must be getting old and stuff like that. Some of these colleges have been here since the 300s. And they've never been changed or torn down. They've just been fixed up. This is absolutely brilliant stonework. An education in intoxication, and we're back to Logic Lane. Really, in Oxford, most of what we did was just wander around and watch Pride and Prejudice. The adaptation was wonderful. This is high tea in the fancy restaurant. They did this cool thing with their coins. I really like what they did with their coins. It just forms the crest of England. This is not Stonehenge, but Avebury, which is actually a lot larger than Stonehenge. The circle of the henge itself is huge. And for some reason, there were sheep in with the henge stones, just sleeping and stuff. And they would call out to each other and go, bah! And then all the other ones would go, bah! It was really funny. But these stones are about 2 or 3 times as tall as I am. Some of them are shorter than me, and some of them are actually missing. They just know where they were. So they put up these little obelisk-type things. See, right here are some obelisk-type things that just mark where the stones were. And from what I could tell, there were 2 henges, because there were all the henges in this field. Oh, there's a baby goat. Baby goat's cute. Sorry, they're not sheep. They are, in fact, goats. This henge has a tavern and a church inside of it. But anyway, there's this circle. And then off in the distance, in another field, there are other stones pointing up out of the ground that are not contiguous with this. See here, that's not contiguous at all with the first circle, the big one. So there must have been 2. But why they were right next to each other, I don't know. This is a panorama of just the henge, the background, more panoramas. Panoramas are cool. They're almost like bow ties. But you can get this sense of there's nothing out here. This is way out in the countryside. Not a house in sight other than the little tavern. And from what I could tell, there was actually a teeny tiny little town. Now we're back to civilization. This is Bath, which has the same yellow bricks as Oxford. Only it's in a completely different location. This is the cathedral in Bath. And the stained glass. That beautiful, beautiful stained glass, they actually had to find and repair after World War II. It got bombed and blew out the glass. And they saved it. But there was a guy who went around and collected every destroyed church he found. He would take one piece of glass, and then he had it remade. This mishmash of churches, and it's in a church in Canada somewhere that just has glass from everywhere. That was a cool little thing in the ground. There was a sword in the ground. I like taking pictures of swords in the ground because you don't see that very often. And it reminded me of, Sword in the Stone, King Arthur type stuff. So anyway, most of the Oxford pictures are just this architecture. I was absolutely blown away by the amount of detail that they could get in stone. I mean, more detail than I can draw with a pencil on a sheet of paper. These guys can take a chisel and a block of stone and marble or granite or whatever and just tap it out. I mean, just think about the effort that takes for a second. It's absolutely silly. Now, Bath wasn't actually quite as interesting as the Plastic Roman. The Plastic Roman kind of scared me. And so did all the angels. But especially the Plastic Roman, because the angels weren't crying, so it was pretty easy for them to just sort of look at each other and cancel it out. But the Roman was a little edgy, a little terrifying. Anyway, in Bath you get these weird, non-cool architectural buildings. They're just sort of flat, like this. There's some columns on that, but it's not nearly as interesting as some of the other buildings. I mean, they have impressive chimneys. I will give them that. They have very impressive chimneys. From what I gather, these were old Roman baths. I think. I didn't know the Romans had gotten into the UK, but from what I remember, they were supposed... I guess they did, yeah. Yeah, they got into the UK. But these were old Roman flats, really. Apartment buildings. There's a little garden with some roses and stuff that we wandered through. This is the impressive part. This is Blenheim Palace. That is somebody's door. Not just a... And it's actually their side door. It's not their front door. Their front door is kind of boring, actually. They have swans, too. The front door is just this little iron gate. But that side door... I mean, imagine walking through that. This is just the courtyard. See, there's the front door. That's not, that's okay. It's kind of cool. Now, Blenheim is great because a lot of it is symmetrical. Some of it isn't, but I mean, you can take a shot of each side of the courtyard and it will look just about the same. These curved things. This is just about the height of architecture. They have these knight gargoyles standing on the outside. And they have cannons. I don't know why they have cannons, but they have cannons. And then they have inside armor and gear from different generations. They have stuffed pheasants and I believe a turtle. And this is Winston Churchill being funny. And this is a map that was about twice my height of the Battle of Blenheim, which basically facilitated the British Empire. It effectively stopped the French. Those were Sir Winston Churchill's toys. They were like action figures for Winston Churchill. But I mean, there's busts and paintings and clocks everywhere. There's frescoes on the roofs. I believe those are real. Sorry, animals. chandeliers. I mean, there's so much attention to detail in everything, even the ceiling, where no one ever would look. And often the picture frame is just as impressive as the picture. And the clocks were really cool. I would pay a lot of money for one of those clocks. See, even the bases on the ceiling of the chandelier, they have treasure chests as well. So they can't let anybody named Link in, because he would just open them all up looking for heart containers, and then they would kick him out. But yeah, they have treasure chests. I don't know what was in the treasure chests. I wish I did. Paintings on the ceiling, anyone? This is Queen Victoria. I zoomed in on various parts to look at. This looks like lace, and those look like real tassels, and it's all carved out of marble. They had some cool books too, but this was also really cool. This was their organ. It has little cherubs and stuff on it. It's a huge pipe organ. And people still play on it. They hold little recitals where people get to play on that organ. This was their teeny tiny little chapel that holds maybe 10 people. Which is equally beautiful as everything else. And we haven't even gotten to the gardens yet. These are the normal gardens, and this was a model. There were several models of Blenheim. This one's a cake. The other one was made out of toothpicks and popsicle sticks and some glue. But this cake has been there for like 100 years or 50 years, some stupidly ridiculously large amount of time. The cake should have gone bad. These are just the front gardens, some more of the courtyard. That would be me attempting to draw, but not doing a very good job, because it's really hard to get all this detail down. Here we go. This is the pleasure gardens. You take a train to the pleasure gardens, and there's this miniature town that is a replica of a street. And I don't remember what the street was called. But it's a teeny tiny little scale model. There was a hedge maze that we went through, and there was a door in it. I don't know why there was a green door in their hedge maze, but there was a green door in their hedge maze, which seems like it defeats the purpose of the maze if you can go straight through the wall. This was the statue in the center, and this was giant chess. And it was a little disappointingly plastic, but I mean, it was giant chess. They also had a butterfly enclosure. Not as nearly as impressive as the one at the zoo, of course, but I mean, they had a butterfly enclosure. This is the train. This was literally Sir Winston Churchill's toy when he was a child. After Oxford, we, of course, went to London town. This year, the Houses of Parliament, Big Ben, me in front of Big Ben in the Houses of Parliament. This was the day, as I recall, that we went on the London Eye. Now, I'm usually afraid of Ferris wheels, and I have to admit I was a little bit nervous going up a little bit on the London Eye, and then I was fine. It's not actually that scary. You just have to stand up. I found that it was actually better to be standing than to be sitting. London is a very funny place because you get buildings like that mixed in with weird new things like that. And so it's really this mishmash of old and new because they never tear anything down. And when you go to Paris, it all looks sort of the same because Napoleon had it rebuilt. But when you're in London, it's just this crazy mishmash. These are pictures from the Eye itself. We're going up over the Thames, which is spelled Thames for some reason. The English had a moment of Frenchiness for a second there. And this is, of course, proof that I was, in fact, on the Eye, and I'm not using someone else's pictures. Apparently that's why you take pictures of yourself in places, to prove that you were actually there. I don't know. I don't understand it. I just like to take pictures of other things. People know what I look like. And you can see as we get higher and higher, we can now see more and more. And we can hear more and more of me stating the obvious, because that's always what happens when you get higher and higher into the air on a giant Ferris wheel. It moves really slowly. It took maybe 10 minutes to get around. That's just a rough estimate. I could probably look this up on Google. We're near the apex here, and I believe we are now coming down. Oh, no, still at the apex. Here we are. As you can see, there's the other the other bubble. I'm going to call it a bubble. People have done some interesting things on the eye. Gordon Ramsay had dinner, a full dinner on the eye. Some celebrity couple got married and then, of course, broke up, within 2 years, because it's a celebrity couple and everyone knows that never works out. And as we come down, there was this cool crescent building. Not to mention a bunch of other just weird things. Here we are. The view from the pinnacle. Panorama. Did I say pinnacle? I meant apex. This is now on the ground, off the eye. They had a painting, or a picture of what the building would look like. I loved that. A picture of what the building would look like when it was done. Now we are traveling along the Thames. This is the replica of the globe, which was not as impressive as I thought it was going to be. The Tower Bridge, however, was wonderful. And we have made landfall at the observatory, whose name will come to me in a moment. Anyway, this is the observatory. That's the naval school, whose name also escapes me. And this is the prime meridian. There was a queue to stand there was a queue to get to the line. So we bypassed the queue and stood on the end of the line. Not the queue, because the queue was silly. You had to wait in like a 50-minute line to take a picture of the bloody prime meridian. Who does that? That's silly. This is, not sure if these pictures are, yeah, they came out pretty well. This was a camera obscurus, which basically takes light from one place and focuses it down in a dark room onto a table. That was of the Queen's home. This was the clock and watch exhibit, really, that was going on. And now we, like that, jump to one of the many museums in London. There were some cool snake heads and things in this place. That looked like an old school Dalek. It's an old Japanese Dalek, basically. Here, my mom wanted to take a picture of that because even the Romans made charm bracelets, and that's her thing. Drury Lane, we were on Drury Lane. They had one of those, that bridge is like those astronaut things that connect to the space station. Red saxophone, because we walked past it and it was kind of cool. Blue trees, because London is, as I said before, weird. More of Tower Bridge. And this is the place where the royal jewels are. I can't remember the names of anything today, but that was the place where the royal jewels were. And these are some of they had a cannon outside. Big cannon. That doesn't even count as a cannon anymore. They had an armor exhibit, which was kind of cool. But that cannon is stupidly large. That armor was made for a short guy. Because, as you'll recall, kings were kind of short. This was made for a child, not a short guy, which you can tell because the head is bigger than it proportionally would be on an adult. You have to remember, back in the time of knights and stuff, people were lucky to get like 5'2". For some reason, they had samurai armor in England. I don't understand it, but there it was. These were Tower Bridge opened while we were there. Tower Bridge. This is the highlight of the trip, really. We took a sleeper train to this place. This is the castle where they filmed the French taunter scene in Holy Grail. We just happened by it. It was on the way to Skye. It's a little castle, and it's a cool castle. And it's an even cooler castle because, and I believe we have a picture of it, yes. Me and my dad being the French taunters. I mean, standing exactly where they would have, which is just cool. This was the crazy long 5-minute bridge from the mainland to the island of Skye, which is where we were staying. And this is the little river that was just outside of the hotel thing we stayed at. The place we stayed at was sort of, it was in the Cuillins. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's Cuilins. Maybe there's two L's. It's the Cuillins or something. And they were these mountains, and they were formed volcanically. They formed actually underground due to bubbles of lava and explosions of lava. Magma, sorry, because it was underground. And then, after tens of thousands of years of erosion, these things were 10 kilometers underground. The 10 kilometers went away, and then you have the black Cuillins and the red Cuillins. And the red Cuillins are these slopey hills that look red, and the black Cuillins are these jagged, pointy things that look really cool. So, I believe we were in the black Cuillins. Scotland is probably the single most beautiful place that I can remember being in. I don't remember much of Hawaii because I was, I think, 8 when I went. But even if I could remember it, I don't think that anything really comes close to this. There's so much mist in the hills. And actually there's enough wind sometimes when you're in an exposed place that you can just lean backwards and the wind will actually support you. I like wind, I like rain, I like mist in the hills, I like all the trees, I like the green, I like the rolling moors. Scotland is stunning. These were some ruins of a castle. We couldn't go into them because the ruins were unsafe. But you can see we went down this really steep hill. Me in my blazer. No heavy woolen jacket. No, there's no blazer. It isn't actually that cold in the summer. That was the only jacket I brought, and it was fine for the entire time. It was actually just about the perfect temperature. Occasionally you get these spots of sun, and you can see them as they move across. Words don't describe it properly. It's a panorama of the view from where we were staying. Plenty of panoramas of Scotland. This was one I took. That's me crossing the little stream. I just like crossing things. There were plenty of rocks, and I got one way across, and then I couldn't get back the same way because I had to make this crazy jump onto a teeny tiny little rock that was somewhat covered in water. So I was like, okay, I gotta find a different way back. So I had to walk for about 5 minutes upstream to find a place where I could just jump across. Everywhere you look in Scotland looks about like this. Unless it doesn't look like that, in which case it is equally nice looking. There's this really striking contrast between the green of the grass and the grey of the rocks that I really, really like. According to psychological studies, just about everyone in the world finds about the same environment to be beautiful naturally, and it's generally green, with some trees, preferably, and some mountains and stuff. And even people who live in places that don't have that and have never even seen that environment find that to be beautiful. And I think that that's really the charm of Scotland. Is it's green and misty and has a lot of trees. This was our last day. We're coming to the close of our journey. Pictures of Edinburgh Castle. Unfortunately, we were only in Edinburgh for about a day, so we didn't go into the castle, which I would have loved to have done. If I ever go back, that is the first thing I will do. And Edinburgh, again, has that same yellow brick as Oxford, which is interesting. Now, it was actually sunny and hot in Edinburgh. And now we come to an end. Sort of. London Heathrow Airport is so cool. And this is what we came home to. Came home to a cute kitten pushing her head into a plastic bag. She doesn't eat them, you know. Some kittens try and eat plastic bags. Our kitten just likes to sniff them and push her head into them. Alright. That is the end of the 3-week journey. I hope you enjoyed. I promise pictures. And those are your pictures. Night all.